very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain.
Yes, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning from here in Lagos. I'm Kayode Kikelu.
That's the day we recap all the things that happened yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Amaya Makide, good morning and welcome.
Oh, yeah, it was quite an interesting day. Maybe for me, really, because it was, as they say, back to back, different things happening around the country, not just in the nation's capital, Abuja. Yes, you had, different events, the decade of gas. You had the president speaking about, the opportunities ahead for Nigeria, especially when people say, crude oil might not be viable in the coming years. So, the government is saying, we know that. So we're turning our attention to gas, renewable energy, cleaner energy and all. And of course, the president had to speak at another event that had, leaders of APC, governors. And don't forget, we saw, maybe for the first time in a while, governors in an airport attending an event virtually because bad weather. And that got a lot of people talking on social media. Talking about the Bola Tinubu colloquium. The governors were meant to attend in Kano State, but due to bad weather, they had to join right there in the airport. Technology, yes, but it brought up a lot of issues, especially when the governor of Lagos tweeted and said, due to bad weather, we could not attend the event. And as you would expect, a lot of people started talking about, is this as a result of insecurity? Why couldn't you go by road and all that? It was quite a lot, really. I'm going to be honest with you. I could go on and on about what happened yesterday, but what was a highlight for you?
Well, that was definitely one major highlight. But if I will latch on to, and of course, the comments of the governor of Ekiti State, but if I could latch on to what you said about gas, I think... How does gas differ from petroleum? Really?
What is gas? It's liquid.
Okay.
For God's sake, it's the same. It's the same. It's like cassava and gari. For God's sake.
Well, it's kind of different.
It's the same sort. Anyway, my point here is, we've come quite some distance. We've come quite some distance from gas flaring, because we've come quite some distance. Check the bottom line.
Gas flaring target.
We haven't.
Severally have missed the target.
We haven't, but at least there is some thinking. I can because for God's sake, guys.
Thinking about all these things. They keep setting targets to stop end gas flaring, and we've never
that is sad and painful and debilitating, because for as long as I can remember, at least since the time then Nigeria LNG started work, to the best of my knowledge, we've been talking about ending gas flaring. Not just one source. Virtually every oil giant in Nigeria is one way or the other responsible for that. And we're wondering, for God's sake, on the one hand, we are talking about climate change. On the other hand, we are finding this difficult. Is this something that is utterly impossible, or is just something that we're unable to achieve for one reason or the other? And unfortunately, it is because you can't store it. Can we pipe it? I don't know. Maybe it's just too simplistic.
We have that AKK, I believe it's called the AKK line that passes across Kogi and other states. But I think it's fair enough to have that direction. But the part I'm still trying to wrap my head around is the vehicle conversion part. Because petrol. You know how much of a headache petrol has been in country, so it will only be fair to have an alternative. So how far with this whole...
I hope you're not thinking that, who knows, will we experience that same kind of headache with gas?
Well, I doubt it, because, you know what? I think it's kind of too early.
My point, guys, is, yes, there is some thinking. When is this thinking going to crystallize is a question Chamberlain is asking, and it is a justifiable question, especially when we are talking about climate change, for God's sake. And for as long as that issue continues to be there, we have to, do some really solid work there, because for God's sake, this has been 20 years, at least to the best of my knowledge. And we didn't start, prospecting fuel in Nigeria 20 years ago. We started well before the independence of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So has it taken us that long to be thinking? Yes, we have huge reserves of gas and all of that, but for God's sake, is that all we're going to continue to talk about? And then add that to the opportunities in that sector. In the energy sector, in the gas, thing that we are talking about now, if we are able to do this conversion thing that we were talking about, imagine the volume of opportunities, employment opportunities that will be created.
Oh, it will be, because the cost of conversion alone is huge. So if you're in that business, definitely there'll be some revenue. But how will people be able to afford that? It looks like an elite thing.
No. See, usually the challenge is to start. Once we start, after some time, innovation is going to come, and then the prices will come down. Come on, look at the tech.
I'll hold you to that.
No, I mean, come
After
on.
a few
The
months.
example is there. The example is there. Look at the telecom sector. How much did you buy your first SIM card? No. Maybe let me ask Jim.
Don't hold your
quite
breath.
different. That's quite different, because we've had this
Yeah.
in other countries. They've done it for years, and the price has not exactly come down, because it is what it is. You still use the same equipment to convert. You still have to buy the tank. You still have to go through the whole
Cardi,
process. And
I believe Shebi is Nigeria.
you have to use
Or
that.
the prices will come down, right? Like diesel.
See, you know us now. We they think, So
he said it. He said it. So
seriously,
hold him.
I believe that it is just to start. When the Minister of State for Petroleum has been talking, he's been talking about this for how far have we gone with that? We haven't really seen any movement in that direction. So yes, on the one hand, we are talking about gas, huge deposits. Then we are talking about the uses. All producers of gas are saying, let's continue to talk more and more about domestic use of gas instead of firewood and all those other things. Yes. Then we're now talking about using gas for automobiles. Fine. But how far so far? And
Well, we need to check. Have we overcome that question about appropriate pricing for gas? Okay.
maybe it's in
So-
the papers this morning.
But, it's a good thing they're talking about that. And I think in the days ahead, because the guys in the sector, they tell us things, but I think it's better to hear from them. So that people, when they say, well, third-party information, you know how that can be.
The challenge with what you've said is it's an extremely technical sector, yes, but if we do not decrypt it for people to understand.
No, not the technicality of the sector. Because, look, as much as they're doing what they can to get us to where they want us to be,
Yeah.
but those sector players also think that there are some loopholes, there are things that the government is neglecting which needs to be addressed if we all need to at least achieve the targets that we have set for ourselves. So those are some of the things. It's not about the technicality. I mean, yeah, that can always be deciphered anytime, but it's something we'll keep our eyes on in the days ahead. But then the dailies now. What a day it was yesterday, as a matter of fact. So so you don't be surprised if the dailies have different perspectives of what transpired. Take a look at the Nigerian Tribune for a start. Kidnapping proceeds used to fund insurgency. Governors. Oh, this is governors. This is the perspective.
Maybe because it was said by the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum. Maybe.
Yes, like whatever the president says, Nigeria says.
Or the government says.
Or the government says.
And speaking about which, look at that picture right there on the front page. Governors, Kaide Fayemi, Gboyega Oyetola, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Dapo Abiodun, former governor of Borno State, Senator Kashim Shettima, and others attending virtually the 12th Bola Ahmed Tinubu colloquium at the VIP lounge of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on Monday, after they were prevented from attending the colloquium in Kano due to poor weather conditions. So that's what you say got tongues wagging on social media.
That's
platform.
really interesting.
Yeah, so there you go.
Oh, you're asking why is it interesting?
In what part?
Well, maybe the event held in multiple venues. It held at the presidential villa,
the beauty of
held at the
technology.
airport.
Yeah, the part of this is, when the telco guys keep talking about the ROWs, the right of way, how the governors need to make that accessible to them, don't make the cost prohibitive, because that's what it was at the time. So if this is one of the challenges now, if they were not able to
Just
at least
imagine.
trunk and ensure that those facilities are in those places, you will not be able to have this kind of
Absolutely.
meeting. So this is, you can imagine if business guys, entrepreneurs are able to have this kind of meeting wherever they go, in whatever part of the country that they're in. you can imagine the opportunities that this will open up for the economy alone.
Do you have any idea what you're talking about, Chamberlain? Just imagine that in the villages,
Oh boy, that's going to be huge. So
that they're able to do this.
So if they keep talking about what's that word now? Ease of doing business, the dynamics.
Technology is playing a lead role there.
As much as they say Rwanda is a small country, but it's a country, and if things are working there, they look at them in the Committee of Nations.
Can I just ask or plead for a desk, a dedicated desk in government that would help business or entrepreneurs from start to finish? Because yes, they get the approvals from government and then they need to go and lay their cables and pass the cables and all that. And you can't imagine how much hurdles they have to cross. But if they have some, help from government, if they have a government person that takes them through, you have to lay your cable here. Okay, this is where you get the approval from this estate, this set of people.
African countries are doing this. They've set up this to make sure that, look, when you start to finish, all the costs, they make sure it's as easy and straightforward as possible. They take away all those bureaucratic bottlenecks.
Because you don't want to know how much they have to go through just to ensure that they do business.
Well, the dailies have a lot, so I'll just jump to this one. Recruit 50 million youths into army, police to tackle insecurity. Tinubu urges FG. 50 million youths. Wow. Can you imagine what impact that will have? I can't go through the riders because of time, so let's just go through all the others.
Okay, well, next up is the Guardian newspaper, which leads with Nigeria competing with bandits to recruit jobless youths, says Tinubu. So that's another angle to this
also
one.
in the rider here.
Yeah, and you see, it helps put things in perspective. But see the riders. Nigerians better off together, says Buhari. That's the front page of the Guardian newspaper for you. And you see, eminent citizens advocate national rebirth, inter-ethnic equity. And, it was quite instructive that the event held in Kano State. This is an event that has always, at least mostly held in the southwest.
The VP said if Nigeria breaks up, visa will be needed to move around.
Yes.
Well, we need visa to go to America
he said it in passing, but it is actually...
and it helped put things in context.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's wrong with getting a visa? Don't you get a visa to go to the States? Or to go to some African countries?
Okay, so if you want to cross
I'm not saying...
Benin Republic, now you get a visa. That's what it says.
This is kind of...
And besides, look, you never really know. You may not need one. You never know.
There might be some
countries
form
you
of
go
agreement.
to that you don't need visa.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
just thinking of that. It's just ideas contending.
Okay.
That's what it is. No imputing any ulterior motives to it.
Even the smile on your face is saying more than you're saying with words.
Perception, bro.
But let me give you something juicy this morning. You see, Nigeria pushes fintech revolution in Africa. Revenues to hit $543 million in 2022. The question is, what role are you playing in that industry? Because clearly, if you speak to these guys, they tell you Nigeria is a place to be if you want to capture the African continent. But see, we had that discussion about after. But see the riders, booming space to create jobs for youth. Tech startup vies with Zoom in $75 billion virtual meeting market. Wow. Starts on the front page, continues to grace too. Let's leave it there for the Guardian.
Sorry. The Vanguard newspaper is pretty much talking about the same thing. Buhari at Tinubu's colloquium. Why we must avoid war. Has a host of riders, one of which is I fought for Nigeria's unity during civil war, says Buhari, warns secessionists against bids to divide Nigeria. And we have all others right there. Above the nameplate, still about the colloquium, the same headline you have right there and a number of other papers. Well, one of them here is Buhari leaves for medical checkup in UK today. That story is on page 9. You're asking...
The resident doctors are billed to go on strike on April the 1st.
That's Thursday.
Okay.
So it coincides with the president's medical trip.
I'm sure the resident doctors didn't plan this. I'm sure they didn't have... oh dear. So what happens to the fate of people that have to go to hospitals? Don't forget, the resident doctors service a lot of tertiary institutions, to a large extent. So if they are pulled off, or if they pull out, you wonder what is the fate of the average Nigerian.
Wow.
Well, let's just say that the Federal Ministry of Health has their work cut out for them.
And the clock is ticking, right?
Clock already ticked.
Okay.
Well, Mr. and Mrs., Mrs. says, you knew about my job before you married me. You knew how demanding journalism is. So tell me, what's the fuss about? I say, what's the fuss about? And the Mr. sits down in his sofa. I don't talk to the press.
All right, you should not eat from the press that night as well.
Well, the back page has Vanguard Sports. It will be quits Eagles camp.
Whoa. I thought they said the COVID certificate was fake. Why is he quitting?
Well, according to the story,
Don't tell us. Don't
it
tell
will
us.
be
Don't tell us.
a number of other things.
We'll
right
look
there.
for sports. Cecilia and gang and the team
Oh, yes.
should give us some answers.
All right, 2 million naira up for grabs for man of the match, most valuable player, and other stories
That's for today's match against Lesotho, I guess.
Well, the details are on the inside pages.
All right. There you
Super
go.
Eagles giveaway, huh?
Oh, yes.
Look at Daily Trust before. Release money to boost economy. Tinubu tells Buhari. Employ 50 million youths to tackle insecurity. We're stronger together, President. We'll need visa to move around if Nigeria breaks up. Oshimbajo. Kano meeting purely about 2023. PDP stalwart. Well, so there you go. Oh, they know themselves. So they impute whatever meanings. They keep telling us you guys don't think like us. So now we're reading their thoughts.
But I don't know, who said it wasn't about 2023? Or was there any denial?
Well, they're only saying that, what is that one about Tinubu saying he chose Kano?
Yeah, to show our unity.
Yeah, because there needs to be unity for there to be a 2023 election.
Oh, these are politicians talking.
You know.
34 months after, Buhari on fresh medical trip to UK. So that's what you also see here. That's our Daily Trust this morning.
Well, take a look at Nigeria News Direct. The lead story, the colloquium. I chose Kano to prove Yoruba Fulani are one.
Okay, that is the headline.
Oh, yeah. You see, riders, Nigerians better, stronger as one. Buhari will continue to draw from Tinubu's wealth of experience. That's coming from the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu. So you find all that on page 5 of Nigeria News Direct this morning. Let me see. You see, FG state's debt profile rise to 32.92 trillion naira. That's coming from the NBS. I'm sure that debate will come up again. Is it wrong to have debt? I mean, debt is just a way to use other people's money to work for you, but, you know.
Yeah. But if you can't pay your debt back, if you can't service the loans,
Remind me of that.
If they reclaim, if you default, you know how it works.
It doesn't look good for a state entity to default. Never looks
It's
good.
really, it's really, really funny when I hear this. I don't understand it.
But you understand
So on the one hand,
you understand how we saw debt forgiveness?
Yeah,
and it was rescheduled.
on the one hand, we have debts worth 32.92
trillion naira.
trillion naira. On the other hand, we have foreign reserves. I don't know.
You don't want to go that line.
I don't understand.
Now
That's why I
you
said I
raise
don't
questions
understand.
as to, okay, what was the foreign reserves then? What is it now? So you
Okay, maybe
you
that's
raise questions.
Okay, maybe that's that.
Is that where
angle.
he's gone?
Too many questions, guys. I don't just.
Okay, just one more. One more. Okay. COVID-19 pandemic. FG flags of export expansion facility program. That's on page 2.
All right, Malcolm, good morning. You want to take the Abuja Inquirer?
Indeed, I've been waiting to do that for quite a while. You guys enjoy your conversation on automotive gas policy and what have you not. But hey, it's good to be back in my city. And good morning, Nigeria. Let's look at the Abuja Inquirer for you now. They're focusing on COVID-19. Yeah, not the colloquium. They have this one, COVID-19. Inside Abuja vaccine saga. That's what you find on the front page there. Mischief makers behind non-availability claims. That's according to FCTA. Yes, we knew this was going to happen at some point. It would just become scarce. After all, Nigeria didn't get that many supplies, did we? But in the midst of all the hesitancy, there are people who really want to get this vaccine. Look at this one. Some centers yet to receive vaccines, as according to residents. Impressive turnout in states. That's also there. You also see this. Kidnap of RCCG members. Self-defense inevitable. That's according to CAN, as the Christian Association of Nigeria. And Autumn Kiari heads police team to Benue. Yeah, so remember that there's supposed to be an investigation into what transpired on the farm of Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State. And it would look like this is the person who's going to be heading the investigation into what transpired there. You know, those who made an attempt on his life. Looking at the bottom here, our fears over COVID-19 vaccine, that's according to Nigerian. So you might want to read that in conjunction with the lead headline inside Abuja vaccine saga. Let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
Print is also here. Tinubu to Buhari, National Assembly at 12th colloquium. Nigerians need economic stimulus. Nigerians need economic stimulus, not austerity measures. Urges recruitment of 50 million youth into the army. That's on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper today. We're better, stronger together, says Buhari. National integration low at the moment. Ganduje address issues fueling secession and restructuring. That's the lead of the paper this morning. But then who made that headline, the statement on the headline? You have that on page 6. Markwe.
Well, looking at leadership for you this morning, 600 trillion cubic feet of gas is also there. Rising global demand brightens Nigeria's export prospects, beg your pardon. 600 trillion cubic feet of gas. I have to read that slowly. Rising global demand brightens Nigeria's export prospects. So it's a page 4 read. As PMB pledges full utilization of gas resources to lift economy, says NLNG generated $114 billion revenue, paid $18 billion dividend to federal government. Remember, one of our guests raised this point in terms of what we should be doing with the refineries, you know, the kind of structuring we should have in terms of ownership of the refinery instead of pumping $1.5 billion into repairing it, and then we don't even know what will happen afterwards. But look, maybe the example that we've set for ourselves in gas could prove a solution. Page 4 is where you find details. Look at this now, 4,954 die on Abuja-Kaduna-Kano Expressway in 4 years. Those figures are frightening. Some calls our attention to the fact that safety has to come back to those roads. Page 7 is where you see details. And PMB travels to London for medical checkup. That's also there. I'll support Tinubu presidency only if he declares, that's according to Fashola. So they have him saying something finally. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Okay, so there you go. I said with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So those are the gentlemen who will be joining us this morning to give their perspective on the security situation, especially in the light of the submissions of the governors, as you just heard in that film, which we played just now. But let's get right to it. Colonel Yomi Dare, former Director, Army Legal Services, joins us here. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Chamberlain, and the rest of the crew. Thank you for having me on board.
We also do have Dr. Onai Komo. You know him, a security consultant and expert. Good morning, Dr. Komo. Good to see you again today.
Good morning, Chamberlain, and everyone in the studio. My Oga, Colonel Dare, and Colonel Stan Labo, I greet all of you.
Yes, Colonel Stan Labo as well. Yes, indeed. You've heard him. Good morning, and thank you for coming on as well. Oh, okay. There you go. All right, let's start with you, Colonel Dari. Having heard the several responses concerning what is happening, we just heard from the governor of Ekiti State. We're not all naive. This is not just going to be about military action. He talks about the political will, interpreting that we need to take the bull by the horn. Give us your impression of all this analogy in terms of what is going on, what we need to do, and how we're approaching it. Are we doing the right things from your perspective?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain, and the rest of the crew there. Honestly, when I received this call last night that I'm going to be with you here today, I started wondering, even in the middle of the night. I said, what is it that I have to come here to say again that is new? Because to my mind, we've said virtually everything. And it appears as if nobody's listening. And just this morning when I met my colleague, Stan Lambo, at the reception, and the same thing we were saying. Why am I saying this? One has begun to sound like a broken, gramophone. I remember those old gramophones. Just rhetorics. You just come and talk and talk and talk. Well, I listened to the governor of Ekiti State. In fairness to him, I do share in his opinion that this battle is not about the military alone. It's something that every one of us, just like it's generally said, and we've said it a lot of times on this platform, that security is everybody's business. It's not just the military alone. It's not just the people that wear the uniform alone or paramilitary. It's for everybody. When you see something, you say something. Because we are getting to a stage now that, honestly, God forbid, you might just be sitting down in this studio one day and they come and overpower your armless security there, and they are right in here. Just, again, we saw what happened. A sitting governor, his life was, attempted. And of course, like in the Northwest, it has become almost a daily occurrence now, except the ones that are reported. And I want to tell you something. This kidnapping or banditry or whatever we want to call it, it happens almost every day. Some of them are not reported. A friend of mine called me up just on Kaduna-Abuja Expressway. They kidnapped the sister. And then the next thing, they are asking for 50 million. And this one, I've not even read it anywhere. And they've contacted the family. So I think it's very, very, very worrisome. Worrisome in the sense that we seem to be glossing over it. We all heard the governor, I think it was the governor of Zamfara State. He said that if he opens his mouth to mention the people who are behind the kidnapping, that people will be shocked. But as we speak, nothing has been heard about that. I expect that, all the law enforcement agents would have gone to him. After all, well, he enjoys immunity. So, Mr. Governor, please, let us know those people. And then we are all aware also in this country that a cleric had audience with the so-called bandits. And to the extent that people are even calling for amnesty for these bandits. Honestly, I think we really need to examine ourselves thoroughly. Why am I saying, sorry, Chimbali, I'm going somewhere. So it all boils down to lack of seriousness, lack of focus. And it's high time that we stem the tide of this. Otherwise, it's just going to be too bad for all of us. Thank you.
Labo, I don't know if you still talk to, I assume you do, your colleagues in service, and perhaps you might have gleaned a thing or two about their thinking, because several of the members of society just can't understand how security agencies are not able to deal with this beyond the usual phrase, seems like off-the-shelf phrase now, saying we're on top of this. So give us your impression. I mean, having been there, what could be the challenge that seems insurmountable on the part of security agencies, Colonel Stan Labo?
Thanks so much, Chamberlain. As a matter of fact, I would say, look, fine, we have a new set of leadership at the top of the military now, which a good number of us had cried out for because we felt it was important and necessary that we effect some changes at the top. But we must be realistic by saying, look, the conditions still remain the same. The operational environment still remains the same. The deficits are still there. We need some little time to be able to see how all these are addressed so that we begin to see the changes we think we need to have in place. Do I have some level of confidence in the new individuals? I would say, of course, give them the benefit of the doubt. I already, like it is, we have seen a few moves here and there that would want to maybe give us some little hope, but let's see how this works out well. Whatever the case, I will still want to hinge on the issue of the political will, which His Excellency just talked about. If the political will is absent, I'm afraid, if the political will is absent, there is nothing we can do, because I think that is where the action itself really originates from. A situation where we have a government in place that gives me the impression that we cannot monitor, for instance, our airspace. Aircrafts could go into our airspace, go down in the forest, drop logistics, go back up, continue its movement without being detected. And we have a whole federal aviation arrangement on ground. I know the aviation industry is such a disciplined one in which for any aircraft to take off, it has to be cleared. At times, even its route is availed, and so on. The point I'm trying to make here is that, look, those of them in government, be it at the federal and state level, should do an inner search of themselves and be able to tell us in this country who are those supporting what is ongoing. Because if you seek my opinion, I would tell you that government is being complicit at the federal level. Government is being complicit even at the state level. Bandits will move into schools. Nobody would see them. They will move kids out of schools. Nobody will see them until when these kids have been moved, all with smoothness, unhindered. Then we hear about the ransom issue. And after 1 or 2 days of funny pretense from politicians and those in government, 300 or 400 million, as the case may be, is released, and everybody goes home happy. The whole damn thing now has become a situation whereby some individuals are busy making money out of the situation on ground, including government officials. I keep emphasizing that. Including government officials. They are busy making money out of the whole thing. It has become an enterprise. And we are just there watching as ordinary citizens. We go back to our bedrooms as ordinary citizens, go on our knees and ask God to please take away the situation in which we find ourselves. While others go on their knees and say, thank you, God, for breakthrough, for open doors, for this new rebirth that is fetching us something. We should be a serious nation, for Christ's sake. Just like my senior colleague said, Colonel Dari, at times We want that. Look, when I come on air, I don't know what else to say that has not been said. We are speaking up to leadership because we elected the leaders. And power rests with the people. And we, the people, are saying, look, can you address the situation on ground? We are beginning to see that even you yourself, you are complicit. Sense of reasoning of those who elected has become blurred by all sorts of sentiments, be it ethnic, be it religious, be it tribal, and so on. Can they get all this cleared off so they can see properly and begin to address themselves to the realities which we feel on ground? There is a huge cutoff between the average or the ordinary Nigerian, the citizen on the street, with the government or those whom we elected. That gap should be bridged. And the onus rests on those in power to bridge that gap and see clearly and address our problems. Nigeria is sinking. This country is sinking every day into anarchy. We are beginning to look like a rudderless ship tossing on the high sea with no direction. We are beginning to look like a ship, a body of sheep in the grassland with no shepherd. Something has got to happen. We have to make sure it wakes up. There is no iota of governance going on right now in this country. Governance is in a state of coma. Under the last administration, under His Excellency President Jonathan, governance went to sleep. In this administration, governance is in a state of coma. We have to wake it up from coma into sleep and wake it up from sleep into governance.
Well, Dr. Kombo, you know, that comment by Dr. Fahimi certainly speaks volumes. It suggests that, I mean, certain people know certain things in some quarters that needs to be done, and then he talks about the political will. But from your perspective, I mean, you analyze and see these things. What is the missing link for you?
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. The missing link clearly is that I don't see the network analysis. I don't see the link analysis. From an intelligence analysis point of view, okay, let's take what the governor said. He said there is a coordination or connection between Boko Haramism in the Northeast, which is based on Salafi Wahhabism, which is based on religion and purity of the Islamic religion, and banditry in the Northwest, which is based on economic imperatives. I have described the banditry in the Northwest as economic jihad, as it were, because they are saying that they want to get money to take care of themselves. And a lot of those bandit elements, in my analysis, at least what my research has shown, and of course, certainly available from many other sources, is that some of those bandits are from Mujao or Mujiwa, Movement for the Unity of Jihad in West Africa. That is the Sahelian conflict. And these are people flowing from Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, even up this way, into Nigeria. And because of our extremely famous porous borders, they can come in here and attack us. They started in rural Zamfara. They started attacking artisanal miners, and nothing was done. So they became inspirational. When the Chinese came in, they got displaced from the artisanal mining attacks and moved into farming. And of course, when they found that they were comfortable, that's why we call them bandits. They are staying in ungoverned spaces. They are bands of killers, bands of gunmen staying in ungoverned spaces and attacking populations from there. Now, you don't see them go into Gusau, for example, and go and take over Gusau. They can't. They don't have that kind of firepower. They don't have that kind of organization. But they can attack rural communities. They can They can attack highway travelers. They can pick up people from the road. They can attack schools like they are doing now. They are coming closer to town. So the threat is really migrating well, started with the farmer header crisis, and then the bandits have also mixed into the action. Farmer header crisis, remember, is also an economic struggle. They say that they are struggling for space to graze their animals. Well, that's fine. That's their problem. It's their business. They should fund it, or they should do something about it. That's my take on that. However, the bandits and then some of the militia they have called in the past to help tackle people who were opposed to them are now staying back and staying in the bushes. That's their domain, and attacking people from the bushes. So what I'm drawing here, Chamberlain, for you is a map from the northeast of Nigeria. Okay, you take a link, put a node there, pull it across to the northwest. Now that is the northwest bandits, and then bring that line straight down to the south. That's southwest. That is the what do you call it now? The kidnapping crisis we have there. Now you can move that line again, move it all the way over into north central. That one gives you what we have there, the internecine farmer header clash that we have there. Then link the line back up to the northeast again from the north central. Of course, the south and southeast, they are not spared. Southeast to a large extent, very few kidnapping attacks. South is heavy because of the proximity between Ondo and Edo states. So we have a lot of those jump out of the bush, shoot at oncoming vehicle attacks, on roads in Edo state. And which is a problem I've been studying and been working on for some time. So what I'm saying is, so let me boil it down, what Mr. Fayemi has said. Certainly, the linkage between the jihadists, that is the jihadists, the pure jihadists, the Salafi Wahhabis, and the economic jihadists in the northwest, northeast, northwest, that is inspirational. The jihadists in the northeast, they are inspiring the jihadists in the northwest, that is the economic jihadists in the northwest. They are giving them a spirit. They are saying, you can do this. Now that's unfortunate. It means our deterrence is not adequate, because the only way to stop. Anyway, let me finish the analysis, then we'll talk about the preventatives later. So it's inspirational. That's that connection. Then there could also be aspirational elements. That is what you have, the leg from the northwest down to the southwest is aspirational, because they are aspiring for great things now. They are saying, let us link up, let us make many things happen. And then that same link going into the north central, that's to the Benue Plateau area, Nasarawa now, and so on. Now, Nasarawa has some of the northeast flowing back, northeast, that's the pure Bababoko, flowing back into Nasarawa now in the form of Ansaru and Darul Islam, the one that Governor Sule has spoken about, and nobody's taking seriously right now. So what the problem with Mr. Fayemi's argument is that there is no operational content to all of this. As an intelligence analyst, I want to see evidence of operational content in all of this. That if not, then it's just perhaps it's political speak. Let's put it like that. It's a political hyperbole. So I think that's
the thing about it is that, first of all, I mean, we're not sure he will be able to say certain things given his position and being a politician. So who knows how several other people might interpret it. But it's not the first time he's made reference to this kind of narrative. Remember when he visited Niger State Governor at the time where the governor was complaining that the center he wasn't getting support from the government at the top in terms of what needed to be done, security cover that needed to be provided in the state while students were kidnapped. And he said, look, whether anybody calls it any name or likes it or not, what he sees happening is these are elements, Boko Haram elements, who have moved down south and carrying out some of these things. He's spoken further, saying, look, these guys are getting funds. And it does appear as though they've carried out different kinds of attacks in different parts of the country. You call it economic jihad. They kidnap and then demand ransom. They attack farmers. They stop them from going to farm. They attack schools. They try to. So certain things appear to be tested in different parts of the country. So how then can't we see all of this? And Nasarawa governor, Benue governor, all of them seem to be saying, Mr. President, you need to do something.
Yeah, I agree with you. Certainly, now you are going into the countermeasures or problem solution phase. All I was doing before was just analyzing that speech, or what I heard on TV, your TV this morning, just analyzing it. And I'm saying, listen, the evidence does not support that. Yes, he might have said it after the Kagara attack in Niger State. Look, we have long known that Baba Boko has gone afield. All you need to do, read my book, read my Boko Haram book. You understand what I'm saying? They have gone afield. They have gone everywhere, but they are not operational. There's a difference. You have two great military men with you there. They will explain to you what I'm saying. They are not operational yet. They don't have the material. They don't have the logistics. They don't have the, let's put it this way for short, capability. They don't have the capability to carry on the Boko business they are doing in Borno, Yobe, and Adama, northern parts of Adama State, in these other places. That's all I'm saying. They don't have that capability yet from a material, logistics, ordnance point of view, and perhaps even logistics, just having the vehicles and stuff. They will be easily slaughtered down here if they tried that. So, but what I'm saying is they are inspiring attacks elsewhere. That is the danger of this. So that's why this Boko cancer that has remained untreated for so long is now beginning to haunt us. They are inspiring people to do the same thing elsewhere, even foreigners. I mean, it's a shame, even foreigners. So that's the point I'm making. Yes, I'm sure that he has said that before, but they're inspiring people to do this. And now look at it's even doing more. They are now the jihadists, the economic jihadists are now aspiring and coming down south to attack targets in the south because it's easy to do so.
Well, let me ask you, Colonel Dare. Oh, we have very little time now to. Okay, I think the best thing to do right now is just to take a break because to unpack some of the things that we've heard Dr. Homer say. Yes, I mean it's definitely a lot on its own, but we'll take that on when we return from this break. Just stay with us. For staying with us, gentlemen. Let me talk to the military officers here right now. There's a lot in you have heard in the analysis, and I don't think this is all lost on the intelligence community in Nigeria. So, Colonel Dare, if we are going to talk about the operational angles of all of the things that he's talked about, because you always tell us about the kinetic and the non-kinetic interventions. So let's talk about the kinetic for a while. He talked about capacity or a lack of it. What do you make of it?
Thank you very much, Ayo. I listened to Dr. Ona Ekomo, my very good friend. He did a very brilliant analysis, which he has always done, and most times he shares with me too. I do, to a very large extent, agree with him that we really need to bring into execution the capacity, the operational aspect of this whole thing. There's no doubt that if you had listened to the Ekiti State governor, the governor of Borno State, Professor Zulum, and of course, their Zamfara counterpart, and also that of Niger State, you discover that the way these gentlemen speak, they speak volumes, and there's no doubt that there's more to this thing that let me borrow the words of Stan Lambo. There's some complicity here. So, if on the side of the government, because you cannot tell me that they don't know where these people are. So what is stopping us? Unleash the military, let them go after them. And I think that's where we talk about this political will now. Because this thing that we are playing with, I think it's good. If we are not careful, it's going to explode in our faces.
We've talked about that phrase, political will, for as far back as I can remember, and it will seem like the dictionary definition is never going to be sufficient because it depends on whose dictionary you're looking at. So could you unpack it for us? What does it mean, political will? And what's hindering anyone who is holding it from wielding it?
Now listen, Ayo. When it's convenient, we tag some banditry. When it's also convenient, we target kidnapping, herdsmen, cattle rustling. Gentlemen, as far as I'm concerned, there's no other name to call a spade than to call it its real name. All these acts are acts of terrorism. Like Fayemi said, there's a correlation. It's all criminal acts. When we started off, we did some analysis, and there were certain laws on the punishment for terrorism. If you have taken someone's life, for crying out loud, I don't think you're entitled to yours too. Simple. But we find a situation whereby people are being, you call it restitution? I mean, what sort of reformation is that? Within a very short space of time. Yesterday, they were busy maiming and killing people in the name of Boko Haram. And then tomorrow, we say we are rehabilitating them. I mean, for crying out loud. Declare all these people terrorists. Declare them terrorists. And as far as I'm concerned, I've said this thing on this forum before, and I will not hesitate to say it again. And that is the political will. Declare a state of emergency. Declare a state of emergency. And with all due respect, I mean, I heard a couple of weeks back that the president gave an order that anybody found with SLR or rifle should be shot at sight. Excuse me, sir. Where are they even getting the weapons from? By the time that order is given, is it only when you see them carrying the guns? What about the people supplying them and working behind the scenes? And even by the time they hear such orders, they stop carrying them publicly. And then they unleash mayhem. You don't need to carry the weapons physically. Yes, please.
Jump in and ask you. I mean, we saw how the army led the initiative in Anambra when some soldiers were attacked, the police backing them up. Did they need anybody to tell them about any political will? If they were able to move in at that time, what is wrong now?
Chamberlain, the army will not move on its own. The army will have to move when orders are given. And that is the position.
Okay, man. It's quite interesting, the perspective, but let me take this to Colonel Stan Lambo, because he spoke about, complicity when we put this question of political will, because we've heard different terms, kinetic and non-kinetic. Now we're hearing military and political will, and you wonder just where do we go? So, Colonel Stan Lambo, as it stands right now, there are 39 students who are still in the kidnappers' den in Kaduna State. And I'd like us to bring this home, because, we could talk about it, but if we don't speak specifically to issues that we're facing right now, it might be hard for people to comprehend. So, they've been there for over 2 weeks now. By Thursday, it will be 3 weeks in kidnappers' den. So if we were to say that either the governor of Kaduna State or the federal government would show some political will to rescuing the students, what would it look like?
Thanks so much. I think it would be out of place for us to want to start talking about the issue of political will or no political will when it comes to the situation with the kids in Kaduna that have been abducted or whatever terminologies we want to use. But just like my colleague said, as far as I'm concerned, whom terrorists have taken over. When you don't do your homework, you are compelled to negotiate. When you don't adhere to all the instructions or all the safe school protocols that we all accepted with Gordon Brown and his team and so on, as a nation, to put in place, we are compelled to negotiate. Because like I said previously in some other forum like this, when you don't put those things in place and your kids are taking over, there is no form of rescue mission you want to go on that will not result in, what's it called now? All sorts of terrible backlogs on yourself. For instance, you discover that you might either lose nearly half of the men or of the kids, if not 3/4 of them, in the course of your rescue mission. So in the case of the Kaduna thing, well, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it's either we want to allow those kids to pay the supreme price, or we go out there and negotiate and bring them out as usual, like all governments have been negotiating within the country. I mean, state governments and so on. I appreciate the position of the governor, El-Rufai. He has all along stood on the fact that there will be no negotiations. But then, in doing that, have you put in place all what should be put in place? How safe are our schools? Even as we are talking about that of Kaduna now, other state governors, what are they doing? Or are they deliberately waiting in case my own is taken and make my own 200 million too? This is what is happening in this country. Let's call it spade a spade. People in government are making money. Period. Now, talking about the political will or whatever you said, we closed our borders for about 2 or 3 years. This was the same period when we had the greatest amount of influx of these so-called foreign Fulani herdsmen from Chad, from Mali, from Niger, and so on. Were our borders not shut? Who were those that are supposed to have monitored the borders to make sure we don't have unnecessary inflow of individuals who don't have their right papers? Is it not the federal government? Is the federal government giving me the impression that through its agencies at the borders, they never saw all these guys coming in, displaying their weapons openly? We know Fulani men to carry sticks behind their necks. These ones are coming in with weapons behind their necks, and no government is checking them. What is happening right now as we talk is that we are facing a manpower issue today in the army or in the military. Meanwhile, terrorists are busy beefing up their manpower because with every passing day, more and more of these guys are coming in. It will get to a point where we shall be at an equilibrium in terms of manpower with them. And if this present attitude is sustained, they will surpass us manpower-wise. We have to wake up. I keep saying this. For us to wake up, we must look at our face, eyeball to eyeball, and tell ourselves some bitter truth. Leadership must be told the truth, that this country is sinking. Our borders were closed. How come these guys came in? Our airspace should be monitored. How come aircrafts were dropping logistics? So we cannot monitor airspace. We cannot monitor land space. Bandits have taken over. Are we sure we can monitor our water space? Pirates have not taken over. Where is your sovereignty as a nation? Where is our sovereignty as a nation? If it were in those days when nations, North territorial ambitions, I can assure you by now, Benin Republic would have been attempting to take over Lagos from Nigeria. Having watched and seen the sort of deficits you have exhibited, having watched and seen that you don't have what it takes, I am assuring you Benin Republic would have taken over Lagos by now. In those old good days when territorial ambitions were being lost by nations. Thank God for civilization. We must sit up. Leadership must sit up. Or we pray for 2023 to come on time, so that with the ballot paper, we can get the right leadership we need to see us through. We need a Murtala Mohammed at this time in this country. Through the ballot box, we need a Murtala Mohammed that will save this country. We are in trouble, terrible trouble. We mustn't hide it. We must talk to leadership. We elected them. Talk to them. The power rests with us.
Colonel,
we can't be scared of
can
them.
you hear me?
The power rests with us.
Okay, now, on more than one occasion, you have had cause to talk to the press and give your own impressions of what you believe is going on in the country. And I'm sure it is from a source of information. What really stands out for me is a sinking hope. You don't seem to have a lot of confidence in the leadership. You've talked about how leadership was sleeping, or governance, you say, was sleeping in the Jonathan years. And that right now it is in a coma, and then it needs to be woken up to a sleep state and then woken up to actually do what it is meant to do. I'm wondering, if you were to talk to the average Nigerian, because some people had, great hopes. Before now, there was a lot of conversation in the Senate over whether or not service chiefs should be changed. And eventually, we did see that service chiefs were changed, even though it took quite a while. A lot of people had renewed hopes as a result of that. Were their hopes misplaced? Or would you say that nothing really has changed from the information that you're getting from behind the scenes?
Well, but all the same, let me piece together the few things I heard from you, Maupe. Whether we are noticing any change going by the recent changes that have been effected at the top of the military echelon. I would say yes, but you see, these things take some time. These guys are not Jesus Christ. You don't expect them to wave a magic wand and then you see everything happening. It takes some time because a lot of planning, operational planning goes into it. And of course, like you expect, and which I want to believe you've seen, a good number of these guys have been going around trying to actually have a first-hand grip of the situation on ground so as to know how to address them, actually. So we need to give quite some reasonable time, and then before we begin to see or assess whatever lines of action they are taking and how it is impacting on the situation on ground. I think we've got to be fair to them and give them that timing. But it is a good omen that they were changed, and I think the individuals that were brought on board are seasoned officers. They are seasoned. We must give that to them. But let's see how this manifests itself practically on ground.
So does it mean that, I don't know, because when you talk about governance waking up, when you talk about it being woken up from a state of coma, Konadari did say something about, orders have to be given. Is it that they have not been given the marching orders to deal with what we're now seeing, manifesting in kidnapping? Some say banditry is too mild a word to describe what is going on in the northwest of the country, trickling into the north central and even parts of the southwest. But is it that they haven't been given marching orders to deal with, the existential threat which we see confronting the country?
Colonel Labo? Well, she is saying that When Conodari says that orders have got to be given, the army can't go, is it that these orders have not been given because we all heard the president say, shoot at sight on anyone who's bearing arms? That's you alluded to. Conolabo, can you hear that? Oh. Okay, if we lost him, Conodari, I'm sure you could equally help a colleague out there. So you were the one who said the army can't move just like that. But in context of the statement credited to the president saying shoot at sight, isn't that a typology of an order or isn't that a direct order?
Well, I think I have to put things in perspective here. The question you asked was that, the happenings in the southeast, where the military had to come in to clamp down on those insurgents, those militants that went against, them. So, and I'm saying that, that in other areas, in other parts of the country too, that specific orders have to be given to the military. And of course, the way the military operates. First, the military doesn't just come out. It's only when the police cannot handle the situation. That's when the military is called in, to take over. So that is a standing procedure. So
yeah, but
it applies everywhere.
What about in the context of that statement saying shoot anyone you see bearing SLR or AK-47, shoot at sight?
Yes.
Isn't that an order?
Well, yes. Again, that's an order. But I went further to say that, as far as I'm concerned, in my own opinion, that I believe, with all due respect, that we should go beyond that. Okay? Because once someone hears that, oh, if I'm seen with an AK-47, I'll be shot at sight. Oh, I mean, well, the next thing to do is to avoid being sighted with an AK-47. So I'm saying that we should even break the bounds. We should break the limits. We should go after the source of supply of these weapons. Okay, because I mean I think it's a common knowledge, and I did say that the way these governors have spoken, specifically the governor of Niger State, the governor of Zamfara State, and then, of course, the chairman of the Governors Forum. I mean, there's a lot, which means somehow people know who these people are. People know who are behind these people, I mean, we see them. Of course, again, we've heard about cases of people arrested outside the shores of this country. For example, in Dubai, they were linked to sponsoring, to funding terrorist activities here in Nigeria. So what has happened to these people? What has happened? You just hear go, you don't hear come. We don't hear the results. So I think there's need for the government to follow through, so that this will, kind of give the citizens some psychological peace of mind that we have a government that is listening and that is actionable.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Kum now, because it's been quite a while, getting him to weigh in on this. And I recall you were trying to, pull the thread between the different regions of the country and what's happening there, how it is possible for one to be inspiring or another one to be aspiring to be the other. And, hearing the governor say that, the funding from kidnapping in the Southwest is what is, fueling some of the things we're seeing in the northern parts of the country. And you begin to wonder, how do they take money from, for example, an Oyo state all the way to a Katsina or Zamfara state, when you have to go through at least 4 states taking money, except that they're doing money transfer, which should be easy to trace anyway. But I think this all ties back to a common point that everyone has made today, which is some sort of complicity. How hard is it to give an order by the government for these issues to be dealt with decisively? You have done a lot of research in this area. Do you think the problem is with giving the order, what some people might call political will, or what exactly is it?
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the question. Well, first of all, let's deal with terrorist financing and movement of terrorist cash around. These guys are terrorists, whether the government decides to label them or not. Many other jurisdictions have labeled them. So perhaps the Nigerian government is still looking for evidence that these guys are in fact terrorists before they will label them as terrorists. But be that as it may, you know, the thing here is these guys don't travel by road. So you can call your states, you can say Ogun State or your state, and then link them up. They don't travel by road. They have their pipelines of traveling, and which is normally through the foliage. That's why we present this as a security problem of foliage. That is the bush, as it were. They are not moving conventionally. They are not moving tanks along the road. They are not running transport business. They don't do money wires, certainly. They do a lot of cash business. And then, of course, I think Colonel Stanlabo mentioned the issue of the planes that are coming in and going out. There's a lot of changing. So we need to check our BDC system, Bureau de Change system, what is happening there. Because there's a lot of exchange of these accumulated millions of naira ransom income and changed into dollars or into CFA and moved out because they need to buy weapons, they need to buy material, and they don't sell those things in nairas. So they need dollars or they need CFA, they need some kind of convertible currency. So what I'm trying to say is they have a very well perfected system. We've pursued some of these guys. We've gone through the bush at great risk, but you know, they are there and they move these things. They have points, change points. They have control points. They have their sub-economy where they take money to pay their fighters and things like that. These guys you see in the bush, these are just the little guys. These are the foot soldiers. I believe I've heard Colonel Stanlabo say this several times. These are the foot soldiers. The big guys are elsewhere. I think Colonel Dari was just talking about people who are in Dubai drinking tea and coffee and funding terrorism in Nigeria. So that's what's happening with the terrorist economy. There's actually a sub-economy of terrorism ongoing, playing out here in Nigeria. And that needs to be recognized and tackled by even the central bank. Central bank has a role to play because there's a lot of BDC action in here. And those who fall under their rubric of what is it called? Regulation. So
we could go on and on with
that. Let's go back to the issue.
Well, just a moment. We are running out of time, clearly, and I just wanted to chip in a particular question because at the end of it all, and I want to take this to Colonel Stanlabo, at the end of it all, it's the people that are the cannon fodders. At the end of it all, and while there are many reported security challenges, there are several unreported. Colonel Dare just talked about one kidnapping case that is unreported completely. And these are even the ones that we know. How about so many other criminal or issues that we don't know? So what well, clearly this is like the people are at the mercy of whatever now. So what can the people do? How can the people come in to ensure their own security and maybe in a way help government give them security?
Thanks so much to start with. One of the discussants just said, see something, say something. As a matter of fact, and like my colleagues have all said, security is everybody's business. We cannot leave it alone to the government. We cannot leave it alone to the agencies, that is the security agencies. We must do our bit as citizens. We must take ownership of our security and see that we actually play our own role. And that is where the see something, say something actually comes in to bear as much as possible. If a given situation where, for instance, we notice unnecessary movement, for sure, we must sound out to the nearest authorities. I want to believe by now, especially in the rural areas, there are well laid out chains of means of reporting. When there are issues, as an ordinary citizen, you know who to run to, be it your village head or whatever, and say, look at what we observe, look at what we observe. Even in the civilized I don't want to say in the civilized world, it's not if we are not civilized here. But I want to say that even in the West, we are all aware of how neighbors, report issues to authorities. We should be able to cultivate such habits here. We need it badly now. And we must ensure, I'm referring to the authorities now, that when reports come forth, we are able to react on good time. To react on good time, of course, would also call for the availability of the logistics that will enable them to react on good time.
Well, it will be, it's understandable. I mean, for your military background, command and control, reporting structure, well, properly, put out there. But out here, I mean, pardon me, Colonel, but I'm sure we'll get some response from people about the experience. Hopefully, we'll be able to improve from the loopholes that they have identified. But gentlemen, Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, Colonel Yomi Dare, Dr. Onai Homo, thank you all for your time and perspective this morning.
Gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure being with you.
All right, we're back in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back. Yes, this borders on the electoral process, dealing with electoral fraud, ensuring at least a lot of credibility or a higher level of credibility is ascribed to our leadership recruitment process, talking about the elections. We've got Mr. Matthias Emeribe, who is a legal practitioner, joining us this morning. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
That particular judgment, wow, it did raise a lot of questions, a lot of hope in several other quarters as to, can we say that, wow, finally, okay, we should be on the verge, judiciary, the presidency, INEC. Do you see that, what kind of impact, first of all, do you think this judgment will have on our elections, either for those who are participating, those who are carrying out electoral, returning officer positions moving forward?
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Before I answer that question, I have to make some very important remarks concerning the judgment that, took place in Akwa Ibom concerning the professor that was convicted. I want to first of all express, because it gives hope, particularly in the nation, when this appears to be the first, in fact, it's a landmark decision and the first in the annals of this history. Since 1922, we've been having election. So I want to first thank the president who has made this a possibility, because if he has not cooperated or given effect to his anti-corruption vibe, this probably would not have happened. And then I want to thank equally the chairman of INEC too, who has also allowed what you may call some form of energy, some form of newness to come into INEC so as to give it some form of credibility, irrespective of the electoral reform that has not taken place. And most importantly, I want to equally thank the judiciary in Akwa Ibom State that has lived up to its billing as being independent. And again, I believe that even the executive in that state too would have played their part in making it to come to pass. And but most importantly,
jobs.
Yes, yes, I am, because it gives hope. It gives hope, and it encourages others, to equally want to act the same way for purpose of we getting Nigeria right, as it were. And the man also who also had made it happen, talking about the resident electoral commissioner for Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini. I mean, his achievements and the things he has done for purposes of redefining our electoral process to get it right cannot be overemphasized. I mean, it is clear that his doggedness and his zeal to be more patriotic and, in fact, to make Nigeria work has made this a possibility. So Now, coming back to the effect of the judgment, with all due respect, it is clear that it will send the signal that, look, it is no longer business as usual, which we used to have before now. Because one, by that judgment, first, something became clear. One, apart from the fact that, yes, the professor, was convicted and sentenced, so to say, meaning that there's no sacred cow, it has also shown that INEC has the power to prosecute, provided there are offenses which fall within its domain. That is talking about the electoral offenses as provided therein. So the court's judgment has vested power to mean that even if the police or any security agency act in a manner that is not consistent with the electoral process, with an intent to subvert, INEC, with the power vested in it, can still proceed against them. And it equally shows that even if an elected member, maybe he has been confirmed to be one who is now in the House or in the Senate or whatever, except for the governor or the president, he can still, or that person can still be prosecuted, provided there's an electoral fraud that has been established to have been committed. INEC now has power to deal with that electoral fraud, because that is the only way to sanitize the system. Very well.
INEC knew.
Well, we do respect going by the Electoral Act, so to say, because for the first time, the amended Electoral Act is the one that appears to have vested same in INEC. Though it has been there. The problem is that there hasn't been need for them to test it, number one. And secondly, the police had not been assisted.
Just a moment, Mr. Miribe, just a moment. He said there hadn't been a need to test the power. Is that what he said?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it takes political will.
Political will.
Now, depending on who is in the saddle. For instance, the current INEC chairman, if he had not given what you call the freedom for the resident electoral commissioner to do his work, it probably would have been difficult. And like I said, it depends on who is in the saddle of the state. Then the president in question that came up with the issue of the anti-corruption drive. Because like I said, since 1922, such has never happened. So if it's happening now, it is because you have looked at the man up there who says, I want this thing to happen, and it's happening.
Isn't that a culpability on the part of government? If you say, because, you started by thanking people for doing their jobs for which they were recruited and they are getting paid. Yeah. Now, everyone is getting paid for doing the things for which you are thanking them. It means that every civil servant should get a thank you from their bosses, which are the people every day. But that's beside the point. Now, there are laws. There are so many things that are in the laws that should be done by INEC that hasn't been done. And now you are saying that this one is the first since 1922. Gratifying to know. What's the assurance we have that there are no political... Okay, maybe I should ask you that way. Would you say that there were political considerations that even facilitated this whole process in the first place? Because hitherto, it could have been done, but it never was done.
Yes, let me tell you, with due respect, you may have, the nature of the politics we play in Nigeria has always given rise to conclusions when actions are not in line with the expectation or with as provided by the law. Then it opens up for different or varying interpretation. And that is why we talk about political will and others. But I can tell you here that with what we have just experienced and with what we have seen, like I said, it depends on the personality in question who we want to give effect to what the law says. Go ahead.
On the personality of anyone to execute the law. No. If the rule of law, just a moment, if the rule of law should be given teeth, should it depend on any individual as opposed to the institution?
I agree that the individual shouldn't be the determinant point. But let me say something here. The truth remains that if we fail, with due respect, to acknowledge the role which individuals play, that is why it goes back to our recruitment process. Because if the background from which we are bringing those who are coming into office is suspect, it has the effect of rubbing off on the entire system as well. That we are having it in perhaps in some other crime, well, it's not unconnected with the fact that the background and the orientation of those personalities are taken into consideration. So you cannot wish out such, as it were, so to say. So while I agree with you that individuals shouldn't be this, the ultimate goal, but you cannot wish it away. It matters. If not, we'll end up getting it wrong. If we have a system, because that a system is working is because the people that consider that system are people, when you look back to their background, they have a solid background that has made them to achieve or to get to that particular position. Therefore, they can, in combination, bring about the system working well. But when you have the wrong set of people, when we talk of system, what is the system? Is it not when you have the right, the people in question that will make the system to work or not to work? Just now, you finished about the issue of security, as it were. And things that are obvious and clear, we are all seeing it. Why? Because people have failed to do what they ought to do. And it goes back to the recruitment process, to the leadership process, as it were. So if the leadership process is wrong, it will rub off negatively on the entire society. And that means that we, as a people, we are under obligation to interrogate, and very seriously too, the leaders that we are bringing to come and lead us. If we end up having the wrong ones, unfortunately, we may, before we get it right, a lot of damage would have been done.
Basically saying that, I mean, leaders don't operate in isolation. Yes. You have leaders because they are followers, and you have followers to have leaders. Now, this professor was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment after he was found guilty of fraudulent manipulation of election results. Yeah. Now, it would have been a different case entirely if he was contested, if he was vying for position in that election. But he was just an official in that election, which brings me to the point of not working in isolation. So there were candidates in that election that vied for the election. I mean, he didn't manipulate the election for himself, for example, because his name was not on the ballot paper. And, you know, speaking about one of the INEC witnesses who spoke during the course of the case, he says that his own results showed that the APC scored over 10,000 votes, while the PDP had just over 25,000 votes. While the accused declared that APC polled just over 15,000 as opposed to the 10,000, while PDP polled 20,000 opposed to the 25,000 that his own, that's the INEC witness, had. So there were candidates in this election, but all we saw was a conviction for the INEC official. Is that right? Is that okay?
Well, your analysis has already said it all. For an election where officially, and that should be, I think, Orokanam, where the result there for the PDP officially has it at 21,153. I mean, 123. And for the APC candidate, it has it 10,534. Only for there to be what you may call a substitute or how do you call it, interpolation of results. Or better still, removing 5 from 25, placing it in front of 10, that's removing that 0 from that 10, placing it in front of 2. So in other words, the 25 became 20, the 10 became 15. In other words, the 25 became 20,123. The 10 became 15,534. Now, what else? And meanwhile, in that line, the entire result, that's the total score, remains the same. To the extent that it will take what you may call rocket science, or should I say, a diligent mind to detect what has been done there. Because if you do the total calculation or tabulation, it will still give you the same result. So that in itself, I mean, clearly, I don't know what other way to put it. And even in the trial proper, the question was put because the position the professor that had been convicted was saying was that it was an oral statement that was given to him. So he thought that they said 15. So he said, look, with all due respect, he was asked to now tell us the difference between 10,000 and 15,000 plus. Are they the same? Do they sound the same? So what I'm simply saying is that he could not have any reason whatsoever other than the fact that he intended to do what? To sabotage and to kill the clarity and the honesty that the electoral process ought to have.
But did he maybe do this on his own volition? Did he act in isolation?
Clearly, if he did what he did to add a figure, because what it means is that he has increased the figure of one party and then reduced the figure of the other. Now, what would be the natural intent or thought when such happens? It is to the effect that he's aiding and abetting a certain political party.
So what do you make of both political parties, I'm talking about the APC and the PDP, disowning him then?
Well, you know, they said failure is an orphan. You know, in this case, having been found guilty, even those who are his sponsors have decided to keep aloof, because the danger in admitting is to now be an accomplice in the action that took place.
Justice has been served, really.
Of course.
Without getting the so-called accomplice, because, I mean, as you have said clearly, he wasn't acting alone.
For this purpose, the point is that when you say he wasn't acting alone, now, one thing stands out clear. Because of the powers of INEC, they are dealing with their own. It's like an in-house cleansing. That's what you just experienced. Now, pertaining to this conviction, it is now left for perhaps the other, what you may call prosecuting agencies or authorities, to now proceed, to now trace those who were behind the official doing what he did, so to say.
One of the lawyers there, while just before we came to you, was talking about the fact that, well, certain things have been done, was suggesting that there might be an appeal. In fact, some of their case in court was that INEC has no power to investigate criminal allegations. Is that correct?
You know, the funniest part of this issue is that, well, he's within his right to appeal when he's not satisfied with the judgment. Now, if he goes on that trajectory, what it will therefore mean is that because first we must understand that INEC is more like a special purpose vehicle for election matters, so to speak. And to that extent, the Electoral Act has donated it with powers to prosecute. Now, on the issue of whether they can investigate or not, so to speak, it is funny that when they put up their in-house investigation to come out with a prima facie case, they have not said that the man is guilty, but there's a prima facie case that has enabled them to say, court, please tell us whether by this finding or by this investigation, this man is guilty or not. That's simply what they have done, and they have submitted it. Now, to think otherwise is simply to say that an organization like maybe NAFDAC, after all, NAFDAC does investigation and prosecute. An organization like NDLA, they investigate and they prosecute. An organization like the Customs, they investigate and they prosecute. An organization like the Immigration, they investigate and they prosecute. These are bodies that are set up by statute, just like INEC. So to now begin to now proceed on that line or trajectory is only, you know, chasing shadows. And in any event, the ultimate question is that how has this action prejudiced the interests of the professor? Can he tell us how it has prejudiced? Is it that what they said or what was found or what the court reached was not correct, or what was presented before the court was not exactly what he himself did? He admitted that he did same. So how has it prejudiced him? How can he now come and begin to now, sounding hot and cold at the same time? In law, his equity will not allow you to approbate and reprobate at the same time. You can't.
You know, this is something that a lot of Nigerians have been looking forward to, that all electoral offenders be prosecuted no matter whose ox is God. And this brings us to this statement, which was a speech, actually, which was read by the chairman of INEC in December 2019. He was talking to Rex in Abuja. I'll just take some part of it because it was a bit lengthy. He did say that at the moment, they are saddled with the responsibility of prosecuting electoral offenders. They have no capacity to arrest offenders and conduct investigation, without which successful prosecution is impossible. Over the years, we have worked closely with Nigeria Police since 2015 we received a total of 149 case files, including 16 cases arising from 2019 general election. And then he says that many of these cases, in fact, he says, even where the commission recorded the most successful prosecution of electoral offenders following the violence witnessed in a by-election in Kano in 2016, it is unclear how many of the 40 offenders sentenced to prison with the option of fine actually spent time in jail. The fine was paid presumably by their sponsor. These are quotes from his comments. So he's talked about the fact that something needs to be done to ensure these kind of cases, more of these kind of cases are recorded. What then how should we approach this such that we don't have to wait on anybody's political will to do their jobs? What should we do to empower people, INEC officials, to do their jobs?
This judgment, that is why we call it a landmark judgment. In other words, the law has spoken. Let me just put it that way. And if the law has spoken, it means that the current state of the law today is that INEC has the power to prosecute. So in respect of all of those cases you mentioned, what it will simply mean is that the police...
You know, when you were thanking all of those people, and we thought, look, if the laws were framed in such a manner as to which if any of INEC officials, if any agency sees certain things, they have the powers to prosecute, will we have time or will we be thanking people who allow prosecution to happen? That's the point I'm trying to make.
No, listen, first of all, when you thank, you are not thanking because you just wanted to thank or because you feel that, of course, it's their duty, so why do we need to what? Thank them? No. I am not doing that because of, look.
I get the point. Doesn't it suggest that if they had done certain things, those persons in those offices, this prosecution might have been jeopardized?
Please, let me get your question very well.
If those persons who at least you had given credence to, if they had taken some contrary action, wouldn't this have been jeopardized?
Well, I agree. It may not. Like I said, it still depends on who is in the office that wants things to happen. Because if you have those, somebody who, of course, had a conviction and had not soiled his hands, and he wants to do the right thing, it may be difficult for those in office to change him and say, look, we want you to go this way. Maybe the worst case scenario is that if you want to influence him too much, he will just resign, as it were. So, but like I said, there's always a starting point. This is starting. This is the starting point. Yeah.
Dealing with in the event that such things happen again. So, how do we even ensure that it doesn't happen again altogether? And that's talking about recruiting people for electoral assignments, such as this professor that has been caught and jailed so far. Is there a question mark about how INEC recruits their men? Is there a vulnerability that was missed that should be blocked?
Let me tell you, if this kind of action is not taken by way of this prosecution and conviction, you give room for, notwithstanding, if you like, go and employ an angel, because consequences does not follow every wrong. Therefore, it gives room for them to do as they like. But as long as consequences follow every wrong, the tendency for those people to do it will not be. In fact, it's either it's going to be reduced or eliminated.
What about the other case? What are the chances of what do you see happening in that case?
The truth is that I won't preempt the court. The matter is there. It's sub judice. So let the court do its work. So as a lawyer, I will be too forward to say that I want to begin to comment on. This one has finished, and we have seen how the court arrived at its conclusion. So, but in respect of the one that is coming up, I will not be in a position to make any comments because it's presently in court and it's sub judice.
Well, we'll see if it deters other, electoral officials from doing several other things because, this professor having achieved the highest academic position, and now this, I'm not sure anybody wants his or her name tarnished in this manner. We thank you, Mr. Matthias Emerebe, legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, I think there's some comments. Can you go ahead with them?
Indeed, Chamberlain, we're seeing a few from, this one is from Comrade Francis Iwedike Osedume, talking about insecurity now. He says, we have the capacity to nail banditry, kidnappings and all forms of insurgency in Nigeria, just that federal government does not have the political will to do the needful. A sad reality.
Well,
The second one
listen
then,
to that.
Professor Inakena says, rejigging national security. The national security architecture must now be primed in a way to allow state access to recruit and manage their internal security. Political and ludicrous sponsorship of criminality must be abhorred, and those involved must be prosecuted openly as a deterrent. I don't even want
That's
to go into
totally
that argument. I don't even want to go into that because we heard the president say there are certain individuals. We've heard a governor say there are certain individuals that are known, have been identified. Who are they? As I said, I don't want to go into it.
Food for thought. Well, that's the show for today, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Oh,
I am
boy.
Kayode Okikere.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Please do stay safe and have a wonderful day.
Well, you know you can't name names, or else the lawyer will tell you, they'll sue you.
Oh, yeah, but you can say your name,
Not
right?
me. I
For
said, who are
defamation.
they? Let the governor speak. Let the president mention
okay.
names.
All right. I wonder what, I wish you could go back to Mr. America and ask me the implication of that. All right, thank you for watching as well. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
And I'm Alpha Green Yusuf. Thank you.